Good afternoon. Welcome to the UK Genesis podcast, the show that likes to showcase UK Genesis users who like to use Genesis. I don't know what I'm saying. You know what this is all about. I'm Gary Jones. My co-host today is Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Are you well today?
I'm good. Yeah, thank you.
Good. And my guest today is somebody who I met recently at the Southwest Genesis meetup. And this is Dave Dean. Good afternoon, Dave.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
Okay. How is life down in Liskeard today?
Oh, it's grey today. We've had some pretty good weather recently, but today is taking a little bit of a turn for the worse. So that's what the rest of the country will be getting soon.
Excellent. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. For those who don't know you, can you give us a little bit of information about yourself, please?
Ooh, where to start? I was chatting with Jo about this briefly before, and she said, "Wow, this bit might go on for a little while." Yeah, I'm ostensibly a web developer working with Wordpress most of the time, but I kind of do a range of different things to try and maintain a diversified income. I have a full-time mum for a partner, so I have two incomes to make up. So I go out of my way and unfortunately work fairly long hours to do as much as I can to make sure things keep ticking over. So for the last couple of years, I've operated a sort of freelance consultancy, mini agency, solopreneur agency called Mortal Design Limited. So it's an LTD, and through that I have only a few clients really. I'm not the typical agency setup where I'm working with new clients on a regular basis and building new sites regularly. However, a few clients who pay a chunky retainer to me every month, and I do all sorts for them, which obviously starts off with a website build, but sort of progresses on to being more helping them out with their online marketing, maintaining sites, improving them, and mucking in with all sorts of other stuff as well, to be honest. How did I get started in this business? Do you want to take it there?
Well, just before we kick into that, there's quite a few things that we're going to talk about. We know you've got some kind of products out there and diversifying your income, as we said about. So if you want to get a question in to Dave, then you can get us on Twitter with the UK Genesis hashtag, and we will get those asked for him. So Joe, do you want to take it away?
Yeah. So I find this quite interesting that you're doing lots of different things. What was this? Let's take it back from that though. How did you get into web development in the first place?
Quake. Do you remember that?
No.
Gary's smirking. He can remember it.
Yep.
I think probably the first site I ever built was a Quake clan site for myself and a couple of buddies who used to play Quake back in the day. It would have been the mid '90s, I guess, which was a geeky computer game. So I think that's probably the first actual website I built. I remember it would have been about 15 or 16. So I guess I've been building these things about 20 years now. But in terms of coding and so on, it goes all the way back to copying code out of a magazine onto cassettes on a ZX Spectrum when I was a tiny tacker. And since then I've dabbled in all sorts, from Delphi, which I don't even remember why I used that.
All at Delphi, 6.
You remember it, do you? And then thinking it'd be awesome to make computer games for a living, so teaching myself C++ when I was a teenager, none of which I can remember now. And I went away and studied graphic design at university. Not entirely sure why. But so I've always had a foot in both camps as well, the design side of things and the geeky development coding side of things. Which is, I think, one of the things that is useful to the businesses I work with is that they can kind of source all that through one person, or at least have one person manage both sides of that, even if it doesn't end up being me that does the design, or although more often than not is. So yeah, and after university, I think the first major job I had after uni was to go and work in the marketing department of a national drinks manufacturer. So again, kind of as a web designer developer to build out a site in particular, but a lot of sites for them. but ended up just being it was only like a 3 or 4 person team in the market department in that company. So having to muck in with absolutely everything from design, website building and maintaining, graphics, all the packaging, which was an interesting company. A smallish company, about 65 people, but they pack all the big national and international brands. So we were a fairly small, nimble little company that worked with all the really big players, your Nestle's, Unilevers, and so got to deal with big customers, big clients, and do some fairly interesting, exciting stuff. That company I left, I was there for 8 years. I left them to go out on my own, which is when I started Mortor, and ended up them asking me to come back. I said no, but they ended up being a retained, my main consultancy gig from about 3 years back.
So do you enjoy the graphic design side of things more than the web design or the web development? Which is your kind of favourite kind of area to work on?
I love design, which is why I hate doing it for other people. It's
too many restrictions.
I enjoy designing things, and particularly for myself, I love designing my own sites. The trouble with design when you do it for clients is it's too easy for them to have an opinion, whether it's informed or not. The coding side of things, they rarely want to have an opinion on that. They don't even look at it, do they? But yeah, so I've done less and less of it over time, and spent more time coding and developing, which is where I get more of a buzz, to be honest.
Okay. And so you operate under a limited company, Mortor, but you've also more recently been developing more of a personal brand with WP Musketeer. Where does that come from?
That comes from an attempt to diversify. As I say, I got to cover 2 incomes, and I want to do that in as safe a way as possible. So there's the freelancing client services side of things, which is fine. It has its ups and downs. I think, as anyone who does it knows, it can be a bumpy road in terms of cash flow and so on. I've been very lucky in that I picked up the gig from my ex-employer fairly soon after jumping ship, which is a fairly safe bit of money each month. It was about the same time. I also a friend of mine approached me who runs a print business, printing company, and asking about me working with him on some websites offering printed services. So I've ended up, or at the time, I ended up going as an employee of that company. So I work a few days a week with them out of their offices. I have the retained gig with my previous employer, and then all the freelancing work on the side, which, as most people do when they first go freelancing, I took on absolutely anything and everything, whether it was design work, brochures, leaflets, flyers, or websites, but I very quickly knocked the design side of it on the head, really, and focused just on the websites once I got a bit more established.
If it wasn't for the say you're covering kind of 2 salaries, if it wasn't for kind of for financial needs, would you still want to be as diversified and have that range of kind of print works and other graphic design and the freelance web stuff, or would you prefer ideally to focus on just one area?
No, I'd want to remain diversified. If nothing else, I get bored pretty easily. So I like to have a range of things to do. I wouldn't do the straight up design for leaflets and brochures and that sort of small client work, because it's too painful with too little remuneration. And I don't do a lot of it now, to be honest. I only do that for people who are the ongoing better paying clients for me, just as not because it's a particularly good return, but it's just kind of a one-stop shop service I offer them that helps encourage them to continue paying the retainer, I guess.
And where does I think we can probably all guess, but where does the WP Musketeer branding come from?
Yeah, I think it's less obvious now, but it was to do with facial hair. Yeah.
Did you come up with that, or did somebody else come up with that for you?
No, I got called all kinds of names, and I think that was the least offensive one that I picked.
And where do you hope to kind of move that brand forwards?
I just want to keep continuing doing what I'm doing with it. I think I'd like to spend more time doing a few more how-to tutorials on that site, because I do get some decent traffic to some of those, but there's just aren't that many on there because I only started it not even a year ago, and I've been busy with lots of other things. I don't get to dedicate, all of every day on it, so I do what I can when I can. And I've been busy in the last few months with something I'm sure we'll come to talk about in a bit. But now that's out in the wild, I think I can go back to WP Musketeer, do a few more how-tos, and the traffic that's coming to a couple of the articles on there is leading me to, well, I kind of know what product I'll build next based on what people are asking me from that site. So continue doing that, find out more about what people want. I think will enable me to pin down what products to work on next.
Okay, so talking about the products then, and it has gone into the wild, we have got, make sure I get the URL right, is musket-theme.com. So can you explain what is this Musket theme? Let me find that. There was a great way of that you'd written up somewhere that I like. It wasn't just a theme, it was a workflow. I can't remember it.
Workflow framework.
Workflow framework.
WordPress and Genesis.
Yeah.
Can you explain more what that is then? Because it obviously sounds more than just a typical starter theme.
Well, it came out of the short talk I did at Genesis Camp earlier in the year, where I'd been asked to talk about using the SaaS Bourbon library with Genesis, Bourbon and Neat, the grid framework, and so to demonstrate that, I showed a sort of typical workflow that I use with Genesis and those two libraries, which I'd sort of incorporated into Genesis and desktop server blueprint, so that I could spin up sites very quickly. And people, to be honest, were more interested in that in the comments I received afterwards. That they were interested in seeing how it was I was able to make a site kind of appear ready and usable so quickly, and then have it live on a server shortly after. So I thought, okay, if people are interested in that, I'll stop what I'm doing and sort of build that out, take it to the next level, and see what comes of it if I publish it.
So it's got a range of features in it. Is this something that's going to be a premium product?
It is, yep. It's up for sale. Yeah, range. I don't know if features is the right word. It's more of a collection of, I don't want to say best practices because there are different ways of doing things, and it's not to say one's better than another. But if you're not using a development workflow presently, then it's better that you pick one than none. This is a collection of ones that work well for me. So it's a desktop server blueprint, which is a very quick way of getting a site up and running locally. With Bourbon and Neat already built in, it does include a bunch of components that come from the refills. I don't know if people are familiar with the refills part of Bourbon, but it's taken those and dropped them into WordPress and makes them work in WordPress template parts. And
so for each of these features then, why did you pick kind of Bourbon and Neat and parts of refills over Less or just some Compass or Bootstrap or some other kind of framework? What aspects of those libraries help your workflow?
Well, the choice between Less and SAS excuse me, came down to the fact that it didn't look like Less would be as well supported going forward. I did use Less before SAS, to be honest, and there are lots of nice. I actually find Less more readable than SAS, but for sure SAS has got more support going forward. So that's why I chose SAS over Less. And then I looked at Bourbon, is it Foundation, Bootstrap, and I just liked Bourbon because it kind of got out of your way more than the others. It was less. It felt more lightweight. It was more modularized, so you could pick and choose the bits that you wanted and you didn't want. It comes with I don't know what to call them, but another mini library or project setup guide called Bitters, which is it's like a directory structure for structuring your SaaS partials and so on, and it's laid out very nicely. And as part of that, you get a bunch of default styles for your HTML elements, which are quite plain and vanilla. It doesn't stamp too much of a style onto things. It just neatens up the look of the standard elements of HTML. Because essentially, I mean, Musket is designed to not have a style to it particularly. The point is that somebody will take it and turn it into a custom theme that has your client's branding or whatever. So there's not very much styling of it. It just looks fairly plain and neat. So you've got a nice framework to work on.
And I can see more features here. We've got Gulp as the task runner.
Yeah, that's probably one of the key parts of it. Really, is that it automates an awful lot of the things that are otherwise quite tedious, or more likely for people working in clients' services. I think the things that they just wouldn't do at all. So out of the box, it comes accessible and internationalized, and has an RTL style sheet for right to left languages. So all of that is up and running out of the box, and the Gulp tasks then keep all that ticking over. So as you work on the site, as long as you use proper WordPress escaping for your strings, in the background it will be automatically regenerating your pot file for internationalization, localization. Obviously it compiles your SAS and so on. There are tasks in there for when you're finished with the site and you want to turn the theme into something distributable. It'll automatically strip out all the unnecessary dot files and so on, and zip it up into a nice little package that you can distribute. There's all kinds of things in there that let somebody working in client services they can add value to their client essentially, because as long as you work within the right parameters, it'll do the things for you in the background that you otherwise wouldn't have time to do, or the client's just not giving you enough budget to do. So it lets you add value and hopefully beat out your competitors when you're looking for work.
And you can see you've got WooCommerce and easy digital downloads compatibility straight away. Is there any kind of custom plugins that you might write for that, or are there any other public plugins out there that would be easy to add support for if it's not already built in?
Yeah, if people just tell me what they are, then I'll happily hack away on it. It does come with a core functionality plugin as well, which is there's not a great deal to it, but it's really just there to encourage people to use one as opposed to not. Although it does have the plugin does have CMB2 already installed, and it has a whole bunch of it uses CMB2 to create meta boxes for all the component parts that come from refills. So when you use those parts, which they're kind of like accordions, tabs, parallax sections, and hero sections, and so on. So when you pull those into your custom templates, you've also got in the plugin the equivalent meta boxes, which you can drop onto the admin pages, so that your end client can edit the content that is in each of those parts.
And so this as a product, then it's aimed at fellow developers for who are producing client sites. Is that pretty much it?
Absolutely. But I mean, to my mind, that's the sweet spot for WordPress as a whole. That's what WordPress suits better than anything. So Musket is designed to work that way. It's not equivalent to something like Bedrock, where you're kind of hacking WordPress into a subdirectory and making it a dependency of a wider app ecosystem. It's Bedrock's great for that if that's what you want to do. This is for people, freelancers, smaller agencies who are making sites day in, day out, want to be up and running quickly and want to be able to sell them with some added value over what their competitors might be able to offer for the same budget, I guess.
And does someone who is looking at your theme, do they already need to know about bitters, bourbon, Gulp, all of and SAS? Do they need to know all of those things, or is there lots of documentation? So someone who is going to be new to all of that, is it kind of also enable people to learn what's involved?
No, they don't need to know all of that. And in fact, I've already had some feedback to say that it's a really useful way to learn those things if you don't already have a foot in the door with them. You probably need to know SAS,
Okay.
But that's not too hard to get up and running with. But you don't need to know about the bourbon and neat side of it, because it is all already set up there and up and running for you. I mean, it's not going to hurt to go and find out a little bit more about those things. In particular, you might want to look at the span columns mixing for urban and neat, because that's the inbuilt way of defining columns and so on. But you don't absolutely have to know those things to get utility out of Musket. And Gulp, you don't, again, as long as you're happy to accept the magic that's going on in the background, you don't really need to understand it in great detail. You need to be able to open the command line and type npm install once when you create a new site, and then after that, whilst you're working on the site, you can just type Gulp and it'll be aware in the background and do its thing. There's a page in the documentation on the Musket team site called Prerequisites, I think, which gives you a rundown on the things you need to know.
Okay, good. Because I must admit, I kind of let Gary ask all the technical questions about the theme, because I've not really got to grips with any of that. But it'd be quite nice to think that if I was going to, there's a good place for me to take as a starting point. Because sometimes when I've read the documentation, you kind of get the idea in theory, but then when you actually go to write the code, it's like, oh no, I didn't really understand that. So it is, well, we all learn by looking at other people's code. So that's
yeah.
Well, I was going to say thanks for putting it all together and making it available for everyone.
That's quite right. I'm asking money for it, so it's not a massive charity gig or anything. But yeah, no, the documentation is. I worked fairly hard, but quickly, because I wanted to get. To be honest, I wanted to get up and running before this podcast. So I did. I've worked hard over the last few weeks to finalise it, and the documentation is all up there, but can certainly be worked on and improved. And I think in particular, I want to get some video tutorials on there, because I know what kicked all this off was the video that I did for Genesis Camp, and I think it's very easy to sit here and describe these features, but that's how is that of a benefit to you is hard to understand when somebody verbalizes it to you, but to see a video of it in action, I think, is what originally piqued people's interest. So
I think I agree, particularly with the kind of the task one and the automation. If you can show the fact that you can kind of build your SaaS, you can minify it, you can check it's all to certain WordPress code standards. You can do the same with your JavaScript and minify it, concatenate it, and kind of create pot files and check text domains and all these kind of automating things that you can do for a theme. And you can show, hey, I've just done all that in 12 seconds. That is just an unbelievable kind of time saving, which you can work out. I mean, I can see on the site it's currently up for sale for £80. You think, well, kind of an hour to work, then kind of the amount of time that's going to pay itself back just by having that automation built in and having that starter theme is just going to be silly not to go ahead and get that.
Yeah, and there's a discount code available for
special offer.
Ooh.
Which I think I've put on the Genesis Slack channel already. So I think hashtag GenesisWP off the top of my head will get you 30% discount off that if anyone is interested.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for sharing that as well. And I can see on there it's also it's 1 year free upgrades, 1 year free support, and it's used on unlimited sites. So yeah, it's everything you could all ever need in there, I think. So good stuff.
When you were developing this theme, did you get anyone to do a theme review? Did you have anyone review the code for you?
Yeah, I may have had a theme audit with a member of this panel.
I was wondering how Gary knew so much about the code, so that's why I just asked. Yeah, okay. And what was that experience like?
Be nice.
It's like going back to school. I don't know. He's much more intimidating on Slack than he is in person over a Google Hangout. But yeah, no, we had a Google Hangout, and Gary scoured the GitLab repo for a few hours, to be fair. And I should have. What is it close to hand? It's not. But I went away with about 6 or 7 sides of A4 of notes, and
wow.
Yeah, ended up. I think I've crossed them all out. But no, well worth it. It was really good. Yeah. It's something that I've missed certainly over the years. Never having worked in an agency, having worked in companies with other people, but not doing the same thing as me. I've not worked with other developers before, so it was really useful to have that sort of peer thing going on.
Yeah,
it's definitely something that a lot of freelancers miss. having somebody to do that, pair programming, or just bounce ideas off, or just have a fresh set of eyes on something. And the kind of the way I approach it is that it's more of a training session for the person, with the byproduct that you happen, or the side effect that you happen to get a better product at the end of it. But obviously those skills and that experience and kind of what you learn from that could be applied to your next product and your next product or your next client site and so on. So it's kind of pays itself kind of several times over.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it also helped me because PHP isn't the native programming language that I've been involved in the most over the last few years. I came to PHP because of WordPress, to be honest, only 3 or so years ago. I worked with Rails before that, I think Cold Fusion before that, and then we've spoken about some of the other language I've used over the years. So I came to it with a good grounding in programming languages generally, but less so the specifics of PHP. And everything I know about PHP now is what I've learned through using it on WordPress. I've never used it for anything else. So it was handy from that point of view, if nothing else.
We got a few questions about the Musket theme that's come in. So Paul Outen wants to know, do you have any thoughts about including Composer in the Musket theme workflow?
I have thought about it. I think so. At the moment, being as it's designed for who I spoke about, people in client services, freelancers, small agencies, and it not operating in the bedrock style of a all-in-one app, I haven't used it yet. And I think if I were to use it, I don't know if it would have to be done separately on the theme and the plugin. I'm still debating that.
Okay, and Jackie wants to know, do you see theme development moving to cater to developers rather than end users? Do you think there's a big move towards that?
Depends what you call a developer. I think certainly it's got to move towards people using SAS over CSS. I think that's the number one thing, and I think that is where the StudioPress themes fall down at the moment. One of the people who has bought Musket specifically came to me and said, "Oh, this is great because I had to leave Genesis and move to another theme framework because you can't get any SAS-ready themes from StudioPress. But using Musket has allowed them to come back and have a start theme base that uses SAS that you can work from again." So he was really pleased from that standpoint. So I think that's certainly something StudioPress need to look at, and is a sign of the way things are going to go going forward.
You've only got to look at kind of Utility Pro, which carries sales at 3 different levels. The top level of which is kind of like the developer edition that includes the SAS files and the grunt kind of workflow, as well as what would be in the lower level packages that are more aimed at end users.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't want to. I mean, I thought about having a tiered offering. Everyone tells you that's what you should do, but I thought about it and thought I'm not going to take the gulp tasks out. I'm not going to take the SAS component out because, frankly, it wouldn't work without it. And it'd be kind of encouraging a way of working that I don't believe is right for the majority of people. If you're working with Genesis, then you're already a little bit more developer oriented than you might be working with another theme framework, because so much of it is done through hooks and filters in PHP as opposed to editing template files. So I didn't actually see any service to customers in offering them a version of it without SAS and without the gulp tasks. So I thought maybe it's not the best business decision, but it's just going to be the one version for now.
So where do you see your business going in the next 12 months? What do you think you're going to be moving forward with?
I'm fairly well diversified now in terms of the different types of thing that I do, but I can shift the focus around from one diverse area to another, I guess. And I'm kind of keen to do more product-oriented stuff. I really enjoyed working on Musket and getting it out there, although it's kind of terrifying putting your first software product out. And I've realised I made a huge mistake in that the very first product I put out there was one for other developers. That makes it doubly scary. But yeah, definitely I've got some plugins in mind, so I'd like to do more of that.
And will they be marketed at other developers as well, or are you thinking you might make something that's more marketed at end users?
And the next plugin I've got in mind is more targeted at end users of WooCommerce specifically, because it's the questions that I get asked the most based on the articles I've got on the WP Musketeer site. So I already know people are asking for it. At the moment they're coming on and learning how to do it with code, but I don't think it'd be that big a job to turn it into a plugin. So that'll be the next one.
Great. And would you ever go back to being an employee at another company, do you think, or you're just enjoying the range of things that you do?
Well, I technically still am an employee at one company. So
a full-time employee.
No. No, I don't think I could. And like I said, the employee job that I have at the moment is a fairly unusual gig. It's with a friend of mine running his own business as well, so it's fairly unusual employed setup. It also makes the admin and tax side of Mortal, my own LTD, an awful lot easier because I don't have to do PAYE.
Yeah. Okay. And you said that you work from home. Do you mostly every day work from home, or sometimes you're elsewhere?
No, I mostly work from the offices of the print company.
Okay.
I try and get a day at home each week, but often less so lately. I managed to cut it down a fair bit, but quite often on days out I would be visiting clients and in meetings, but I'm managing to do less of that now, so I can focus on the product stuff. And it's a 6 of one, half dozen another. If I work at home, there's a lot of distraction. If I work out of the print offices, there's potential distraction. It's not so bad now that my daughter's at preschool.
Yeah. So you're based down in Cornwall, which is a long way from anywhere.
Yep.
So do you get to many WordPress community events?
None whatsoever. Only recently through joining the Slack channel have I sort of been able to integrate into the community a bit better, because they're pretty cut off down on this peninsula. So the only meetup I've been to is the one where I met you guys recently in Wiltshire.
Yeah, that was good.
Hope it wasn't too scary.
No, not at all. That was fine. Indy enjoyed meeting you all anyway. So yeah, no, that was the first. I'd love to go to more, but it's a fair old trek from down here.
And that's why the Genesis camp was so good, wasn't it? It's because it was a virtual event across the globe.
Yep.
Would you like to see that run again next year?
Oh, I think it should be at least once a year.
And would you speak again? Would you speak again?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. As much as it terrifies me, this sort of thing is my biggest weakness. But yeah, you got to get used to it, haven't you? So yeah, I enjoyed it in the end.
So therefore, I'm going to ask you, what's the best thing about the Genesis community?
The fact that it is a community, I guess. Having hopped from community to community over the years, like I say, previous to WordPress, I concentrated on Rails development really. So I was part of the Rails community for a while, and there was a fair bit of drama in that community over the years, and it was probably not as a friendly a community as the WordPress community is generally, although it has its fair share of drama, as we all know. But the Genesis sub-community is particularly nice place to hang out. And the Slack channel has been great for me, obviously being cut off down here a little bit. I say cut off, I mean the southwest Cornwall does have a fair digital contingent, but none of it is WordPress. And I have been to events here that are kind of web dev events generally, but any mention of WordPress tended to be in a kind of a sniffy manner, to be honest.
That's a shame, really, isn't it?
Would you consider setting up a local kind of WordPress Listgard monthly meetup?
I think if I limited it to Listgard, which is the town I live in, it would be fairly bereft of anyone turning up. But yeah, I'd consider a local one. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know very many other developers down here. There's Liz and Russell Jameson. I know you've had Russell on before.
Yeah.
So they're kind of the first people in the WordPress world that I've met down here, and I only met those through the Slack channel.
I know a couple more WordPress companies that I think are Cornwall based. There's
Right.
not Genesis though, Glass Raven, and I'm trying to think. Sadie is her name, and I think the main people behind BWeb moved down to the southwest recently, so they've got dual offices, something like that. So I'm aware of a couple more down in Cornwall, so you never know, you might be able to get a small gathering if you expand it to the whole of Cornwall.
It would be good. I'll be meeting Liz and Russell at the weekend to have a chat, so we can talk about these things, see if we can drum up any interest down there. I'm sure in Plymouth, which is just over the border in Devon, but it's only 20 miles from where I am.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there are a few WordPress folks in that area.
Okay, Paul Ocean wants to know, what's your favourite Quake character?
I can't remember. Were there different characters were there?
Paul, give us a few as a list, and we'll read them out for Dave to decide.
I thought you just had different coloured helmets on it. It's too long ago now.
I never played that, so I can't comment at all. And Paul's asked another question. He goes, for someone who wants to learn SaaS, what are the best resources you've come across?
Oh, that's good. I mean, there's the SaaS website. To be honest, I think that's all I've ever used, and opening up other people's code.
What is the SaaS website? Do you know the URL?
SaaSlang.com. Possibly SaaS-lang.com off the top of my head.
So Paul, go and check that out, and buy the Musket theme to have a check out the code.
I know Paul already uses it.
Oh, is he already using it? Brilliant. Well, there you go, Paul. Right. Okay. Let's see if anyone else has any other questions in. Oh, that's that one. All right. So, what would you like to see? This is from Jackie. What would you like to see StudioPress do with Genesis going forward?
Tough question.
Do you want to see them SaaSifying everything?
That's the child themes. Not. I mean, yes, I think they should. To be honest, I don't mind whether they do or not. It doesn't affect me personally. I think for their other customers, they certainly should. I haven't used a huge number of StudioPress themes because I've never felt the need, to be honest. I kind of jumped straight in with building my own base. That's kind of the geek that I am, I guess. I think for their own benefit and for their own customers, they should. Whether or not they do like Carrie's done and sell it, create a tiered version of each theme, I don't know.
How about a more advanced starter theme? So instead of just Genesis sample, there's a kind of Genesis advanced sample, for instance, that is SaaSified and kind of task automation and so on.
Yeah, quite possibly, but I don't know how that would affect other people choosing the other child themes for the fact that they're already styled to a certain degree. I'm not sure. It's kind of up to StudioPress. But Genesis itself, to be honest, the reason I moved to WordPress from Rails, which is highly customized, you got to build everything yourself effectively. There are gems out there, but you're doing a lot of the work yourself. I moved to WordPress when I started freelancing, because it is the ideal platform for client services when you're making lots of sites regularly and having to maintain them all. And the reason it's good for it is because it doesn't change as radically as these other frameworks do, because it maintains its backwards compatibility. So all the things that people sniff at WordPress for are actually, to my mind, its strengths. You can put sites out for a multitude of clients and know that the ensuing WordPress updates aren't going to break them most of the time. You get the occasional niggle. If you compare it to something like Rails or Meteor, every time a new version of those comes out, even the point releases, the changelog is hugely long. They break previous versions constantly. It's a real hassle to keep on top of the maintenance of them. So that is the beauty of WordPress. And again, that's the beauty of Genesis. I like the fact that Genesis is a really solid base and doesn't change that often. We've had a couple of updates recently this year, obviously, to add in some important features for accessibility and so on, and that's good. But I'm happy to not see it change too often. Probably not a fashionable thing to say, but
no. Your opinion is your opinion, isn't it? All right, I was going to ask you. So because you've come with a graphic design background, so the sites that you deliver for your clients, so they tend to be more custom designs, custom builds. You're not using the pre-existing StudioPress themes and just customizing them. You're more of a bespoke.
Yeah, I've never used a stock theme for I think I might have used one once for a very small site for somebody's holiday home in Portugal. I think. No, it's always been custom builds, but I've always tried to make sure I work with slightly bigger companies to make it that worthwhile. I think my experience of being on both sides of the fence when it comes to agencies, as in kind of operating as a one-man agency myself, but also working as an employee in companies and hiring agencies to do work. When I left, I felt like to get the bigger clients, I'd have to go LTD straight away, VAT registered, and sorry, I've lost my train of thought. What was the question?
I don't know what you yeah. So, well, who are these? Who are you marketing yourself for the bigger clients? So you started out with a limited company, you became VAT registered because you're basically trying to appeal to the large businesses where you could provide a bigger service offering for them.
Yeah, I mean, larger. I wouldn't say large. I've worked with some slightly bigger companies. Yeah, I just went that route because I felt it was safer than doing lots of small brochure, leaflet, and flyer work for small companies. And I knew it sort of all happened at the same time that we had children as well. So I knew I was going to have this second income to cover, and I thought there's not a lot of point in scratching around with small jobs and small work. I needed to sort of go relatively big straight out of the door.
And how have you got yourself out to those bigger clients? Have you been doing networking events or?
Not really. A bit of word of mouth, a bit of friends and family, to be honest. Like I say, the print company is run by a friend of mine. One of the big contract I had from my ex-employer came out of being an ex-employee. Some of the other companies have been through people I know that work in the company, and kind of random happenstance, some of it. One of the companies that I work with very regularly, I bumped into their son at the climbing wall where I go rock climbing, or used to before I had children. He mentioned my name to his dad, he ran his company, and I got the gig that way. So
you never know where the work can come from, really. Sometimes.
No, that's right. And I don't have leads coming in all the time because I don't put myself out there for that reason. I don't go to any efforts now to find new work because I have these bigger clients and I can't really afford to take any more on. I'd rather spend any free time that I do get working on the product side of things and the Musketeer personal brand.
Do you have a cat by any chance?
Yep.
Have you got a hungry cat?
I might just have to let him out the back door, I think.
You got a cat that needs to go out?
Hungry. I think it's something else that he needs, yeah.
Oh, okay, well go
we'll hold fire.
Whilst you have to disappear for a moment, I wouldn't mind giving a bit of a shout out to at the Southwest meetup we had. I believe it was Paul. Apologies if it wasn't you, Paul, but I think it was you, Paul, who mentioned the idea of us having a Genesis retreat. And that is basically where we'd all go away somewhere for a few days and, basically just get to know each other a little better, help each other out, business-wise. Maybe some people do a few presentations on some cool code tricks they know. We put a survey out into the Genesis Slack group to ask what sort of thing people would want to cover by going away for a few days. So I have yet to actually analyse the results of the survey, but can't speak now. It seems like there's going to be quite a bit of interest in that. So that will be potentially in March. So if anyone wants to know more information about it, then just drop me an email or something like that, and you get added to a mailing list. And so a Genesis retreat hopefully happening at maybe at a Centre Parks sometime in March, and you're back.
And it'll be something like probably like initial kind of planned offerings is looking at, say, a 5-day 4-night thing. So it's not just a one day, it's a potential stay overnight. So work-related aspects during the day, so obviously socialising in the evening or taking advantage of the Centre Park's facilities. But it'll be a proper retreat rather than just a jolly.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at maybe everyone maybe doing a small presentation, depending on who's coming and what they want to talk about, exactly what topics they would need to see. I also think that we're going to need some time, so you can take time out to do some of your own work as well, because you can't just leave your clients for a week. So yeah, I mean, we're pretty open to ideas and suggestions for what people are looking for, which is what the survey was for, but I've just not actually looked at the results yet, so we must do that. And yeah, we'll mainly be discussing about that in the Genesis Slack channel. If anyone who isn't a member of the Genesis Slack channel wants to know about that, then give us a shout and we'll show you how to get in. Paul has said that the Quake characters are Sarge, Doom, well, I don't even know how to pronounce that one, Zyro, Anarchy, Kless, Bitterman, or perhaps Bitterman's would be a good choice.
That's a more recent version of Quake. I'm going back to the original.
They're not the original characters, Paul. That's no good.
One, and you never saw his face.
So,
right. Should we do the quick fire?
I was just about to say, should we do the quick fire? Do you want to do the quick fire round, Gary, or do you want?
I'll do the quick fire round.
You do it. Yeah,
so, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Ooh. I contemplated being an architect. People kept telling me I was arty, so I thought I could go to university and study graphic design, but is there really any money in that? So I'll be an architect. And then I looked at the university prospectuses, and they were to become an architect was 7 years at uni. So I thought, stuff that, I'll do graphic design.
Sounds good. Mac or PC?
Mac.
Which code editor do you use?
Sublime Text.
2 or 3?
3. For all the funky themes that I saw after watching Juan Rongel's video at Genesis Camp. I thought, wow, how do you make it look so sexy?
How do you manage your code snippets?
Google. I keep meaning to set up Dash and all the Alfred integration and that, but I just haven't got around to it. To be honest, a lot of the time I just pull up old sites that I've done where I've worked out before and copy paste the code.
We kind of talked this earlier, but for local hosts, presumably you use desktop server, because that's what everything runs on for you.
Yeah, I want to get VVV set up, but I just haven't had a chance yet. I wanted to look into the blueprint equivalent for Vagrant for getting sites up quickly, and then I obviously offer that as a part of Musket as well, so you can choose to get started.
Certainly for VVV, Brad Parbs, I think his name is. He does the VV, and that has supports for blueprints as well. So that would be one option there.
Yeah,
and that also supports integration of just setting up, say, a Bedrock related site and potentially a WP starter site and so on. And Skeleton, WP Skeleton for Mark Jaquith. So it kind of supports different types of templates as well as its own templates as well.
Right.
What do you use? Sorry, what do you use for design or wireframes or mockups?
WordPress.
What are your design tools?
Wireframe. For actual design, I have the Adobe Creative Suite, although I hate it more and more every day. So I've recently got Affinity Designer, Affinity Photo, which are fantastic. They run really nicely natively on Mac, as opposed to being a hybrid app like the Adobe program. So they just run a lot more smoothly. I haven't been able to ditch the Adobe suite just yet, because I still do a fair bit of packaging work, especially for the drinks manufacturer I work with. And the industry native files get passed around to all Creative Suite, so I'm stuck with it for the time being. But the Affinity apps are great.
What are your kind of go-to plugins? What are your must-have plugins?
I think probably the only one I definitely install on every site is Yoast SEO. I always turn a Kismet on, but that's in there already. So Yoast SEO, usually a form plugin of some description. I use Gravity Forms and Ninja Forms, and I've just tried Caldera for the first time, which is pretty nice.
Do you have any public plugins?
Not really beyond the core functionality plugin that comes with Musket, but that's like I say, it doesn't do a whole lot. It's more, it's set up ready for you to do what you need to do with it. I did the other day extract the work I did to make the docs work on the Musket team's site, because somebody was asking about knowledge bases and docs in the Slack channel. So I pulled all the code I wrote for that out into a plugin and dropped it on the site for them to tinker with. So that's the closest I've come to anything public.
What do you think of the customizer?
I think the customizer is for WordPress.com, not for WordPress.org.
Controversial. How do you see WordPress changing over the next 5 years?
How's it going to change? I think it'll become more and more conflated with WooCommerce. I think WooCommerce is really important to the future of WordPress. That and the REST API. I think those two things will be the driving force behind WordPress continuing to be at the forefront.
What would you, well, we didn't say anything for that. What would you say the benefits of Genesis to developers?
The fact that it's heavily manipulated via the PHP code rather than editing front-end templates.
And what would you say are the benefits to your clients?
That it makes my life easier. I don't think they wouldn't know whether or not I was using Genesis. I think they're all aware that they're using WordPress, and they're all aware that they're using WooCommerce, and in fact, like I said earlier, they conflate the two. I don't think there's much distinction. I should probably point out that all the sites that I operate are e-commerce sites using WooCommerce, apart from very few that aren't. And definitely my clients, they don't really know where WordPress stops, where WooCommerce starts, and vice versa.
How much do you consider accessibility, internationalization, localization, right-to-left scripts when creating client work?
Up until producing Musket, I kind of didn't, I guess. Which was one of the reasons, one of the things behind Musket is that I have gone to town on making sure that all that is right and works, so that people working in client services and churning out sites for clients can include that as a bit of added value, because not just because it adds value to them selling their services, but also because it's genuinely important, I think, that sites are accessible, and certainly certain clients will require that your site is multilingual, easy to localize.
Do you prefer www or no www for domains?
With the www, because it specifies what the domain's about when you're on the www. I mean, these days domains can be used for all sorts, whether it's a mobile phone app kind of phoning home for data, so it can use a different subdomain, or if you've got, I don't know, a separate e-commerce system from your main site, you can have a shop subdomain. So I think the www just specifies that you are on the kind of the front-facing website. I mean, you don't have to use it in your marketing material, but I think seeing it in your address bar, I think is the correct thing to do.
Okay.
That's an opinion.
What was the first domain you purchased?
I think it might be, I've got dave-dean.co.uk, so that I could have the mail@davedean.co.uk email address, which I probably shouldn't have just given out live on air, but
It's all right, we'll edit that out.
We'll bit it out. It gets enough spam anyway, a bit more won't hurt.
And what is your preferred tool or plugin for post types and custom fields implementations?
I use CMB2 for meta boxes, and I've started using the JJ Granger CPT class for making custom post types.
Cool. Okay, that's all the well done. That's all the quickfire done. Let's see what questions we've got. We've got Jackie saying, how do you see the design influencing the direction of WordPress? Sorry, how do you see design influencing?
Ooh. I think with the REST API, where in the future, well, I say in the future, the REST API works fantastically well now. Even just as a plugin on it, it's half rolled into core already, I think, isn't it? The latest version.
For the 4.4, you've got what they're calling a baby REST API is in there, so it's just supporting kind of the native post types, and then kind of the I think the extra endpoints for custom post types and so on is going to be kind of version 4.5.
Yeah, I've already used it with the plugin, and it's production ready, I think. But it lets you separate the front end and the CMS aspects of WordPress really nicely. So I think in future the design aspect will be, I think what will help WordPress progress is that design front end being able to be taken to a more app-like level with clever JavaScript front end libraries like React and Angular and so on. So I think we'll see WordPress break away from the traditional page refresh that is kind of still a bit stuck without the REST API. And I know you can do the Ajaxy things, but it's not like some of the more progressive framework, more modern frameworks out there can do at the moment.
Mm-hmm. What just changing topic there? What tools do you use for kind of invoicing and managing projects and so on?
I use Free Agent to manage accounts and bookkeeping. For my company, it is it's brilliant, absolutely amazing tool. Just really, really simplifies things, and it makes it really easy for my accountant at the end of the year as well, so that he can charge me less, which is good.
Is that because I know some accountants specialise in being free agent specialists? Is that who your accountant is?
No, my accountant is used to dealing with agricultural businesses.
Right.
So it was all very new to him. We're all part of Cornwall. There are a lot of farmers around here, and that's who he mostly does the accounts for. So it was new to him, but he quickly got his head around it, and I think he was quite amazed that he could get the 3 documents he needed at the end of the year to send to company's house by pressing a few buttons instead of trawling through receipts and God knows what else they normally have to do. So he was happy about that.
How about project management?
I tend to use Trello. I'm a big fan of Trello. I like the visual sort of Kanban board style of moving things from left to right in columns.
Mm-hmm. Do you tend to price up your products on fixed price or hourly or some combination?
I like to have a retainer. I like to have a monthly fee. But I don't always work like that. And there's even one company in particular that I work with regularly. I do work for most months. It's not a retainer. We do just an invoice based on the work that's done. But it is. I know I very, very, very rarely work hourly to an hourly price. It's almost always they scope out what they want done, and I give them a price for doing it. Hours never get mentioned.
So for your retainer, do you say it's going to be this much and you get this many hours for me, or is it just it's this much and I'll do as much as you need, or how does your retainer, how's that set up?
Yeah, you have to put together a contract, and the contract will specify a number of hours on it. But I'll talk this through with the client, and we always make sure there's an acceptance that there'll be months where you do less and there'll be months where you do more. And I never want to get fixed to those number of hours that get specified. They need to be on a bit of paper somewhere usually. But yeah, I don't track time particularly and say this is exactly what I've done. There might be a general scope of what got done in a month. But yeah, it tends to be with people who I've been working with for a while now. They know me well. They know I'm not taking anyone for a ride, and vice versa.
Excellent. Let me just check see if there's any more questions.
I'm just going to say that Liz Jamieson has said on the UK's Genesis that she's looking forward to seeing you at the weekend too, Dave. And she's also just sent me another message that basically she built a survey that went out about the Genesis retreat, and she's actually just sent me a message saying that she's actually currently summarising the survey results and will make it available to us in due course. So brilliant. We might get to it sooner than if I was looking at it.
So, thank you very much to our listeners today. We'll start to wrap up. Who, Dave, would you most like to see on the podcast next? I have to say that these questions kind of start getting trickier and trickier because obviously the number of people we know within the community is who have not yet been on the podcast is getting fewer and fewer.
It's getting smaller. I didn't. I've no. There's a chap I see speaking occasionally in Slack channels. I'm not sure he's been on for Alan Fuller.
Yep. I know
seen him
the chap, so I'll kind of catch up with him if I haven't already. If it's not on my list, yeah.
And
I don't think Lizzie's been on, has she?
No, I was going to say, when you see her at the weekend, will you persuade Liz to come on, please?
I'll do my best. I did notice a chap actually I don't know if he's newly on there or I've only just spotted him, but Ben Blankley he's called, and he I saw he had a fairly interesting business that was quite tightly focused on charities and non-profits. And I had a quick look at his site, and his offering looked quite interesting, so he might be worth speaking to.
Write these names down so I don't forget. Okay.
So where can people see you online? Where can they find you online, Dave?
You can go to wpmusketeer.com, WP Musketeer on Twitter, or head over to muskettheme.com, where all the docs for Musket are freely available. You don't need to log in or anything to see those, and don't need to have bought it to see those, so you can have a look through them and see whether or not it is for you.
And just remind us of the discount for your theme.
Oh, that's the hashtag GenesisWP, I think.
Okay.
If that's wrong, I'll let you know and you can put it in the show notes.
yeah, you add it in. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you,
Joe.
Yeah, nice to be here.
And in 2 weeks' time, we've got Dom Wint is the guest in 2 weeks' time. So we'll catch up with you all then. Until then, have fun. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.